feet above normal, and rough surf may cause some coastal flooding and beach erosion. Wednesday, the wind southeast becoming variable, 15 to 25 knots. Rough seas and swell with sweep seas, 5 to 10 feet on the ocean, and 4 to 7 feet on Long Island Sound. Visibility occasionally below 1 mile in the air, showers, thunderstorms, and fog. Tide 1 to 3 feet above normal, combined with rough surf may cause some coastal flooding and beach erosion. Wednesday night, the wind south to 12 to 18 knots. Seas subsiding 4 to 8 feet on the ocean, 3 to 6 feet on Long Island.
I decided I wanted an electric guitar, you know, and an amp, and like I wanted to rock somehow. And I like went in and just like bought like the guitar that looked coolest to me, and an amp. And I really didn't even know the difference. You know what I mean? I wasn't like, oh, this is a bass and that's a guitar. I was just like, whatever that one is cool looking and I can afford it. And it was a Guild fretless Guild bass, and I didn't know like fretless from fretted, and I just brought the thing home and I'm like, you know, I was a little fucking dumb, like I guess, you know, and I was like, oh, it's a bass. Oh, it's fretless.
I had always wanted to learn how to play the piano and stuff. There was a piano in my house, but I never learned any instrument. I never sang.
I took piano lessons when I was a little kid, and like I always wanted to play guitar, but mom, like, for some reason, just didn't want me to play guitar. I don't know why. And then my grandma got me a guitar for Christmas.
I had my first little kid drum set, I think, when I was 4. Just moved up from there. Little cans, buckets, and then my first formal drum kit, I think I was in 3rd grade.
And Shao, when did you start playing drums? Or was that the first instrument?
4th grade.
4th grade?
Yeah.
Why?
We all had to pick an instrument, and I didn't like any of the ones that.
What do you mean you had to pick an instrument? Like,
it's for 4th grade
for
music
school?
class. So I had to go home with a list of what to pick, and my mom said, "Why don't you play the drums?" And I said, "Well, they don't offer that." She said, "We'll take private lessons." I said, "Okay."
Music was always like in my family big time. Like when I was real little, my dad we have like a music hour, and like after dinner, everyone would want to like go off and do their own thing, and he'd be like, music hour, and like, because we were little kids and you could tell us what to do. And we'd all go into the living room and he'd put on Johnny Cash records and Neil Diamond and like his shit, like, which was mostly like old country music and stuff. So like I can recite like all of Johnny Cash's songs.
At a younger age, I was Bruce Springsteen. That was it. I had all his records. I knew all the words. I was into U2.
AC/DC and Led Zeppelin, U2.
Anything from like, you know, Zeppelin to like, I mean, I think the first love song I really dug was Evergreen by Barbra Streisand.
Around 3rd grade, I remember like getting my own first record, and that was a Kiss record.
I also got a little bit of music from my sister. I used to listen to the radio with her and like Husker Du.
Everybody thinks you're gay if you like Barbra Streisand.
First concert I went to was Oingo Boingo with Squeeze. That was really cool.
There were a couple of instances where I first heard punk rock, and that was from Billy Mole, who was in my 7th grade class when I went to an all-boys Catholic school, and he was playing Suicidal Tendencies. And the lyrics, I saw your mommy and your mommy's dead, you know, that was like, whoa, what is that, you know?
Geraldine, my other sister, 4 years older than me, around when she like just got into high school, so I guess I was in like 5th grade, 6th grade, she got into punk rock, and then that's how I got into punk rock. She was giving me mixed tapes with like Black Flag, Dead Kennedys, Plasmatics, all that stuff, Angry Smoans, and I was like, whoa, and that just That was a turning point, massive turning point.
Wow, you know, and I'd have to like travel up to, you know, you'd hear about these shows at CB's on Sunday, and you'd be like, I gotta get to that. How do I get to that?
There was a kid in my neighborhood named Rick Connell, and we make this stuff called jungle juice, where like you go into like your parents' liquor cabinet and just kind of mix everything up, you know. So like you don't take too much of one thing, so you know, find out. But that guy Rick, like he had like his punk rock tapes, like he was into like the Dead Kennedys and like the Agri Samoans and Circle Jerks, and like he just like play this music. I'm like, what the fuck is this? You know, this is something, you know, I never heard it before, and I was really kind of taken by it.
I grew up in Basking Ridge in New Jersey. I knew Pete from soccer.
Everyone played in the same like Pee-wee soccer league, and you know, you're just like, oh, there's that Nito and the Steinkoff.
When we were younger, we were in rival BMX gangs. That's where I first met Brian.
It was like we just kind of, it was a small enough town or something where, and we were all in the same age group, and you just kind of knew each other.
Pete wanted to beat me up at an 8th grade Christmas dance once.
The shower would come
He
outside.
sent in one of his thugs to call me outside, but I wouldn't go because he had a knife.
I know a knife.
The first guy that I started playing with was Shao. Like we had a band in like 7th grade called Plutonium. We thought it was the heaviest metal on earth, but then someone told us that it wasn't. So, I don't know what it is, but it's not Plutonium.
Pete and I started jamming in like 10th grade.
After school, we just go over there and just start playing together, and it's just like having a good time.
We clicked as soon as he came over and we plugged in, and we like learned like Bloody Sunday together, and we were like, oh, this is great. We just kept playing it like day after day, and it was like, oh, it's like a chemical reaction, dude. We fucking totally jam good together, dude. You know, like whatever. And we were just like, that was it. You know, it never stopped after that. It was like perfect.
Then his neighbor named Sean played drums, and he used to come over, and then we started to switch.
We like went to Sean's like brother's college and played like at some parties and stuff, and like some little bar in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and we're like, yeah, wow, you know, like drove in the little pickup truck and like drank beers the whole way, like going 100 miles an hour, throwing fucking cans out the lake. So many times we should have died or something.
It was kind of cool because I was like 16 and go to bars and you get like a free bar tab.
We were psyched, you know, you're like 10th grade, you're like, we were going like college chicks, so, you know.
I remember being in gym class. Pete was there in my class, and I just struck up a conversation because he was on the soccer team, and I knew him from that. He said he had a band called The Switch.
We hung out, it was like me, Pete, and Greg, hung out exclusively all the time.
When we had our second band, which is me and Brian and Brad and Chuck Long.
And it was Brad Karma and the Absent-Minded Fruit Bats. Greg would just come over, and he was the kid who just hung out when you were jamming. And we were like, all right, you sing.
They started playing I Can't Explain by The Who. And they're like, why don't you get up and sing? So I got up and sang I Can't Explain and jumped around like crazy. All over the room. I sang the same verse over and over. And they were like, whoa, you should sing. And I said, okay. What else do we know? Like, do you know Blue Suede Shoes? Sure.
He rapped or yelled or kind of sang a little bit, like one note, whatever. Didn't matter. It was just like, it was about the friendship, you know. And Shao and Pete had jammed. And Shao would always be like, we gotta jam, dude, we gotta jam. And then eventually we jammed with Shao. And that was actually 1987.
We wrote a song at Brian's house called Brain Dead.
It was called Brain Dead. And it was just totally retarded. It was about sitting around like being brain dead.
Brain dead fool. Don't want to go to school. Don't want to get a job. Just want to drink a beer. Be a mindless blob. Something like that.
Sitting around, you don't want to sit. Thinking about thinking, don't want to deal with it. That's all I remember. It's the first line.
It's like a phone rang in the song, and like the guy picked up, was like, hello.
You get it. You're closer. That was the line, I think, to show the extreme laziness that we wanted to portray in the song Brain Dead. So the phone rings, and then someone says, you get it, you're closer.
It all started at my house, and at some point we started practicing at Greg's house.
We wrote a song called Set Me Free and a song called Slave to Fashion.
My dad was the coolest guy. I mean, it was so loud from the attic. we played the same song over and over again. Set Me Free, over and over and over. And I would come downstairs and he'd be like, do you know any more songs?
We were sitting around in Greg's attic. We were like trying to think of a name for the band, and we're like, we want to be the somethings, like the Ramones. Like, we gotta be the something. We gotta be a the band. And so we're like looking around, and everyone's thinking, and like I'm in my head, I'm like looking at stuff and like adding the in front of it, like the this, that.
Names, the wall, the chair, the floors.
The Cool Ranchers. Like, we'd always eat a Cool Ranch Doritos. Kind of glad that one didn't stick.
And I was wearing a pair of Docs like I am now. And like the Bouncing Souls. Like off the tag on the back, I think I must have looked at it and it says with Bouncing Souls. I'm like, the Bouncing Souls. And everyone's like, yeah. And I'm like, and we'll spell like S-O-U-L, like soul. Souls, the Bouncing Souls. And that was it. Doc Martin.
And that was when we first started to develop into a band. Like, people would actually come over and watch us. Wig, mostly.
I mean, I guess the first show was the Knights of Columbus, which was in Burnersville.
You know, the classic, like, kids renting the Knights of Columbus Hall for, like, however many bucks, and then making flyers and handing out flyers everywhere. We probably got, like, 100 kids, 50 to 100 kids. We were all psyched, you know.
Yeah, it got shut down by the time, like, the Souls played a couple of songs by the cops for making too much noise.
Right on time, here come the cops, shutting it down. We're on stage, and, like, there's the cop, like, shining the flashlight in my eyes, and, like...
After the show ended, we just drank our beer and stood around on the floor and we set up the tables and like...
We like lined a couple of those up and then like one on like a down ramp, and we did like run across the room and like slide across it and then slide down it on sleeping bags, and we were like, we broke a couple of tables and we like snuck them out of there and threw them away so we wouldn't get in trouble. We just like had fun anyway, you know.
At that point, I loved the attention, and that was something I think deep inside I really had wanted. I was like, whoa, I can be a singer in a band and get all this attention.
It's great. It was great to go to a show. It was great to be in the pit, and it was great to be on stage playing. It was even better, you know. It's great. It's still great.
It was really cool. Like, I love playing with those guys, and it's kind of one of those moments where you're like, this is really cool. I'm gonna do this forever.
But that was the first show that there was any like shirts at. Brian made all the shirts in his basement.
Me and Ugly Bill, this kid who lived at my house, like when we were in high school, we had like 2 art tables set up, and we'd be like, let's have an art jam. Like, we'd drink coffee and smoke butts and draw. Like, that's where I drew the Bouncing Souls guy, the first original version, and like the first batch of shirts. And we'd steal pocket tees, and they came like one in a package, and we'd go in with our flight jackets, and like we'd put comics down this sleeve, carton of smokes down this sleeve, and like 2 like pocket tees in here, and then like zip up and go back out. We'd do that like once a night until we had like 50 or 60 shirts, and that was like the first batch of Bouncing Souls shirts.
I was like, well, we can't continue stealing t-shirts, and if we keep doing this, we'll have to take money and buy new t-shirts or whatever. And that was like step number 1, businessman 101 right there.
Somehow, someone got the idea to move to New Brunswick.
We were all, I think, in just that after high school, we don't want to go to college, but we know we don't want to go to college, but we don't know what to do.
Like, I applied to and got into like Mason Groves and like Virginia Commonwealth and like all these like pretty good art schools. Went and visited them, went to like the orientation, like thought I was going to go to art school, and then like I was just like at the last minute sort of like, I was like, fuck this.
I just remember being at Brian's house and being like, we gotta move to New Brunswick.
It was enough of an idea, the Bouncing Souls was enough of an idea where we were like, right in the nick of time, like me and Greg were supposed to go to college or something, and we were like, let's just blow it off and move into a punk house in New Brunswick, and we'll just like do the band and hang out. And we're like, yes. And the second we said that, it was like such a relief.
Shal's parents saw the house and were like, there's no way you're living there. So he had to live at home, so his spot opened up, and I got it. And that's how I came to live with them. That was at 54 Welton Street, which was the first place we had in New Brunswick in '89, where we lived for about 10 months.
And that's kind of like when it all began. all the mayhem.
We're having parties all the time. It's dirty. We're getting ripped off by people because we live in the hood and we're a bunch of like green and white kids from the suburbs.
That place was like right there in the projects. We were the only white people, and we were like, yeah, man, we're down, dude. We're totally down, man.
A very dangerous neighborhood as far as there's a drug dealer living next door.
I would get like jumped, or people like would chase me.
Fights in the street, the next door neighbors, brothers beating each other up.
There was once where Shal got like held up right outside our house.
Gunshots now and then, and screeching cars all the time.
It was also like open door policy. It was just like anybody, anything went, you know? We had a lot of like fucking fucked up criminals living there. It was crazy. People who are dead or in jail now.
People would just kind of show up and hiding from the cops. Like, we gotta hide somewhere. We're like, why? You know? We're like, okay.
Open door policy was scary. It was like riffraff coming through all the time. But that's what we wanted. We wanted that whole world. We wanted the party world and everything that came with it.
That's where we met Pedro. He lived there when we moved in.
They were happy guys, and they were, you know, they seemed to be about like doing stuff and making things happen. Like there was a pool.
The pool was like an actual like cesspool. Like like things were growing out of it.
You know, branches and green scum, and you know, Jimmy Hoffa was in there.
You'd clean it all night long. Clean it and clean it and clean it.
Within a night or two, we'd had it cleaned out.
It was like really like a clean, awesome fucking pool.
All the neighborhood kids, like we let them all come in and play in the pool all the time. So we got to be friends with everybody on the block. So it was like, as much as it was a little sketchy, it was like, I felt like at home when I got on that block, like people knew me. I remember I was getting fucking jumped one day right there, like on my street, and someone ran out of the house. Like this was like 5 houses up from our house. Like ran out and like, leave him alone, he's cool. Like it was cool. Like we like kind of broke that neighborhood in. Like we got to be friends with everybody there. Like we just couldn't be denied. We were so psyched about everything, and no one had a bad vibe in them. You know, we were just like, yeah, you know.
You know, it was a great like first like punk house. Like we were just like, whatever, we don't live at home anymore, and everyone's excited, and we're all eating like Franks and beans and, you know, spaghetti like 7 nights a week, and there's a giant pile of dishes and, you know, rotten milk in the sink and whatnot. But it was a good time.
Shao would work all day and come and show up, and we'd be like drinking beers on the couch and being half wasted. And he would be so determined to get something done as far as music or whatever. And we would be like, chill out, man, you know, and that would just get him more burned up.
It was really a lot of fun at first when they moved in. It was fun, and then the fun kind of evaporated, and other people moved in who weren't a lot of fun at all.
There's just a couple months of time where just like people were just fucking shit up. It was weird. Like cops would be at our house like looking for somebody like every day.
A couple of guys went into a frat and like broke into a frat during a party, like went into a basement and started walking off with a keg. They were like on acid. They're like walking off with a keg, and they got like confronted by all these frat boys, and they like beat the shit out of them with crowbars.
Just got kind of out of control after a while.
So they just kind of got sick of the house and decided to, you know, just abandon it and move to another place.
And we found one in Somerset, about half a mile outside of New Brunswick border.
We ended up moving somewhere that was too quiet and kind of lame. We only lived there for like a year.
The band was chugging along at a slow pace. We probably had a few shows a month. Everybody was working their own jobs.
All we knew was like what we didn't want to do. Forever, the story of the Bouncing Souls is really just, we knew what we didn't want to do. You know, we knew we didn't want to go to college, and we knew we didn't want to like get these serious jobs. We knew we didn't want to like grow up and do what everyone our age was doing, and like we weren't done hanging out together and having fun and playing and drinking beer and fucking off.
So we looked for another place, and that was when we found Commercial Avenue.
So that's where we had like the best house, which was 174, which was like kind of like the golden era of the New Brunswick punk houses.
I remember going to look at the house. We looked around the house like, this is great. It's huge. It has a basement. There was a old pot roast in the oven, which was really nasty. It was really dirty to begin with. Perfect for us.
It had a basement for the band, and like rooms on top of rooms on top of rooms that you could divide in half and thirds and just like squeeze people in every corner.
You know, a lot of people came and went, like different roommates and, you know, people filling in. But at one time, I think we had like 10 or 11 people living there. You know, it was packed.
Life at 174, again, it's, you know, like reworking the entire, you know, environment to suit them or whatever they were into at the time. They got into surfing while they were living at that house.
They would come back from surfing and like go up to the bathtub and rinse their wetsuits. And so the bathtub was all sand and just like there was wetsuits hanging everywhere.
They screwed hooks into the ceiling so that they could hang their surfboards.
At one point there was like a mini ramp in the living room.
You like could skate through the living room and like do a trick in the kitchen and then back through the doorway.
And we hammered guitars, old guitars, Sears guitars up on the wall.
I mean, the walls were just like graffiti, just posters, like they were covered like everywhere, just with shit.
Anytime we were silk screening the shirts in the living room, something else got a screen on it. The window had a screen on it. All the way down the stairwell had all Bouncing Souls screens on it.
Baseball bats by the front door because it was a shitty neighborhood. Really crappy neighborhood. The house got robbed a bunch of times. Bunch of times.
There was like 10 BMX bikes in this living room and like couch here, couch there.
There was no TV. There was a TV in the house. It got no reception, and you could kind of watch it with a VCR, but the VCR got stolen. So there was no distraction from that. You were left in your environment to make your own fun.
One day they decided to play golf in the house.
Skater Dave wanted to put a fire pole in from the attic down to the basement. He's like smacking a hole in the ceiling. We're like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm gonna put in a fire pole. And we're like, you can't do that. He's like, oh, okay.
Always something had to be going on. Like you know, you'd miss it if you like weren't there for a day.
It was like a bar almost. You know, people would be sitting around with guitars, playing punk songs, and always be like a stereo on somewhere.
We got to know them because also a guy who I lived with was Chris Coelho, who was the drummer for Sticks and Stones.
The Sticks and Stones house was like, it was a Prospect house.
Prospect Street was nuts. You had Lamar Vinoy, Rob Santello, Chris from Sticks and Stones, Brian Downey. All these guys are neurotic, you know, myself included.
We were busy reading and studying movies and this and that, and we had a bunch of wannabe thugs hanging out over at 174. I didn't know them personally, but my first thought of them was just like, whatever. The house filled with idiots, you know?
They had really good parties. You know, they had much better parties than we could ever have. We'd have a party and nobody would come over our house. They had parties and there'd be a ton of people there.
They always had parties. They had these, like, their annual backyard bash things. So one time we went over there, and that's where I first got to know them. They would have bands play there in the backyard.
It was a long time before we ever really got into kind of real gigs, so of course we just started inviting people over to the house.
We built a skate ramp on the right side of this huge garage, and then the left side we had a little stage. Figured we could charge people a couple bucks, they'd see a bunch of bands, and we could pay our bills. That would just be a group effort.
It'd be like, you know, like 7 bands and would go like afternoon to night.
You know, people would be skating, and like there was like, you know, like a couple kegs of beer, and then like a couple like almost like food stands, like a little carnival or something.
Anal Dave from the house was making like fritters or like vodka slushies and selling them for a couple bucks.
It was cool, like we started like our own scene.
They do some campus show, right? And there'd be like 400 kids at the show, right? They'd finish the set and they would say, hey, everyone come over to our house. I think you got 400 kids there. The thing about New Brunswick is everyone would go over their house.
We developed a system like for having a party where like we'd call the wall.
There was a space on the wall. We've had phone numbers of everyone that we knew.
Columns, like 3-4 columns of just like numbers. Because it was like we'd have parties and we'd be like, write your number on the wall.
And just start making phone calls, and then you'd have like 500 kids like at the house.
The people on the wall call their friends, and it's all of a sudden it's like people from all over. From all the way down to Philly, all the way up to New York, out to DC. I don't know how people even found out. I mean, this is like before the internet, and I don't know how people like from so far away would like show up.
New Year's Eve parties were big.
At midnight, everyone went diving off the couches in this massive mosh pit. Beer flew everywhere.
Whoever Lando like went out a window because he was like crowd surfing, and like his feet went out and broke a window, and it was just like people were fucking like had like just throwing fucking pots and pans like, ah! You'd have a party, and then the next morning, like, there'd be people on the couch, like, people laying around, like, that just, and they would just not leave. And it didn't matter. It would just be like a new member.
A really cool fact about Commercial Avenue was that we used to rake the living room.
You woke up the next day, and that was part of the whole process. And the first thing you'd have to do, there was a rake, and you just raked through the living room, like, raked garbage into, like, piles, so you could, like, walk to the kitchen, you know?
There's like hardwood floor, and you just get the rake out and rake it clean.
All the money that was made, like, would go towards the electric bill or the oil bill, because we always get these enormous bills. Because the place was like living in a garage. It was so drafty, you couldn't heat this house, you know?
And they refused to turn on their heat until Thanksgiving so that they had something to be thankful for. So I tried to hang out for about 15 minutes, and I was like, this sucks. I'm going back to my place where it's warm. I was like, all right, see you in the spring.
It was freezing all the time, so you'd be like sitting on the couch, like, with your hood up and your gloves and your jacket on, like, just sitting on the couch, like, there's 3 or 4 people like that. You'd get all the cats on your lap, like, to keep warm. And, like, people would just walk in. And just, like, you didn't know who they were. They'd just, like, walk in and sit down on the couch. You'd be like, what's up?
At one point, we all had a job at this place called Flying Frog Productions.
Say a business would rent out a carnival with booth games. So we would be the people that would come and set it up.
You had to, like, wear a fucking, like, one of those white, like, hats and, like, red and white striped, like, blazer. It was awful.
And the kids, there was no regulation of the kids playing the games, and they would just stand there and, I'm playing again, I'm playing again. Before you could set up the bottles, they'd knock the thing over, and you'd bend over to get the thing, and they'd throw the ball again.
It wasn't just a regular dunk booth that you'd see at a carnival. It was, you'd sit in the big, huge glass box, and there was a toilet above your head.
There was like a motivational dancer kind of guy, you know, kind of guy who was like, do the hustle, and like show you how to do it. And we'd have to go out in like different outfits, like a shark suit, and go on the dance floor and like play with the kids, you know.
I had to be a 3-headed dragon outside a Honda dealer.
Oh man. By himself all day.
Just by myself, man. They dropped me off, like, here's the suit. I put it on for half an hour. At times it's like 110 degrees in it, you know, and I'm just like,
Shao and Pete, I think, had to be a front and a back of a horse.
I think I was the ass.
That was what funded the band. It was like we all had to work towards that. Like, the band wasn't making any money. So like you'd get your paycheck, and then everyone would have to kick in like $400, $300 or whatever towards mailing cards.
Before laptops were available to punk rock bands, you'd go to a gig, you'd put out a notebook and say, mailing list, write your address here.
You had a notebook with all these names, and then we'd make a mailing card. We'd get like a gig, like whatever. We'd party at our house on this date, show at the Roxy, like matinee with these bands, fill out each mailing card by hand, and then like stamp each one. And every month we had that project. For years and years we did that. One of the mailing cards, I did a drawing, and it was called the Penis Landscape. And so like we were getting calls that whole month of like angry parents, like, take my daughter off your mailing list, take my daughter off your mailing list. Ooh. What do you guys, like, just, we'd pick up the phone hello, like Santello would pick up the phone or something, there'd be some parent bitching.
Brian's artwork was great, and that's what kept it going.
8-ball was big deal. Everybody was wearing 8-ball jackets.
I think it was a joke and a reaction to that to make a 6-ball.
Everyone like who was part of that house was part of the Greenball crew.
There always had to be a crew and a posse. Like, I was really into that.
I wasn't really into like their funk kind of thing. When I saw them live, it wasn't so much the music, it was more of the energy of the show.
My old band, Token Entry, they opened for us a couple times. They were nice, you know, it was just like, oh yeah, they seem like nice guys. And when we heard them play, we were just like, oh God, they're awful.
We sucked, but like, a couple people knew it, but nobody had the heart to tell us. Sticks and Stones knew it.
I hated what they were playing. Like, it was terrible, but they had this like energy then that's what you picked up on, kind of, you know. You really picked up on this vibe that they had.
We would just put everything we had into it. whether it be just dancing around and screaming and yelling, and it just made people dance.
It was like non-stop all the time. Like, we're gonna party, we're gonna play, and then we're gonna drink, and then we're gonna play, and then we're gonna practice, and we're gonna make mailing lists, and we're gonna make mailing cards. It was just like,
Commercial Ave eventually fell apart because people going in different directions, and the landlord eventually had enough with us, you know, and all our antics.
We were trying to explain to him that it was illegal for him to raise the rent like 25%.
And he said, "You have your law, and I have mine."
My integrity was not going to let me pay more than $130 to live in that place because it was falling down around your ears, and we got robbed every holiday and all that shit.
More criminals, you know, more like people like take advantage of us.
And I remember looking around and saying, well, this is going to be over soon. Something in me clicked, and I said, what the hell, this TV doesn't work anymore. Why? It never worked. It only got 2 channels. I was sitting on the couch, and there was one of the guitars, the old Sears guitars, that was hammered to the wall. And I grabbed the guitar off the wall and just started smashing the TV with it.
And it was just like, bam, like the noise that it made was awesome.
I think Matt found the vacuum cleaner and was plunging the vacuum cleaner into the TV, and then firecrackers came from somewhere.
There's a couple bottles of booze, like some kind of cinnamon firewater or some shit, and we smashed it on the radiator, just knowing that whenever, you know, in years to come, someone cranked that thing up, it would just stink.
We smashed the guitar into a wall, hung a toilet seat on it, just like we were just picking anything up that we could that was left and destroying it.
Brian had some kind of medieval thing with a mace or something, and a couple swords up in the attic, and I remember those going into the wall.
Kind of like destroyed to create kind of vibe, you know, like we have to like destroy this to like kind of move on.
And there was like literally nothing, we couldn't find anything left to break, and Dave went down and found an old fucking dirty old toilet in the basement and brought it all the way up.
I was like, whoa, Dave, what are you doing with the toilet? And he said, let's throw it off the roof.
We took it out on the roof of my bedroom, mine and Pete's bedroom, and he chucked it.
Just to fucking watch it explode.
That was like the end of Commercial Avenue, like that hitting the ground, you know?
Creatively, it was tough. Like, we didn't really write that many songs there, but we tried really hard.
I think we really developed as a band, like as playing live shows and everything, was at City Gardens, because it was like where we grew up going to shows. And like you saw all your heroes play shows there. So like it was just an amazing thing to be on that stage and play shows there.
We played with like Secret All Times, we played with Gang of Four, we played with Rollins Band.
We opened up for Bad Brains, played with Agnostic Front.
Another show they did was they opened for Fugazi.
And I remember Ian MacKay was like, nice bass playing, man, to me. And I was like, whoa. I mean, I'm sure I sucked balls, man. But yeah, it was still nice to hear.
And we had a demo, and we put press kits together.
It was like manila envelope, and I'd decorate and do like original artwork on each one and make the envelope totally cool. Like, they're gonna love this, you know? Like, send them to all these fucking record labels.
And they got rejection notices, which they promptly hung in the bathroom door so they could sit on the toilet and reread them over and over again for inspiration.
I don't know why it didn't occur to us in the first place to do it ourselves, but it didn't, you know, we didn't have that, like, concept.
If like no one's gonna do it for you, just do it yourself. And it's kind of carried on for 13 years now, you know, same way.
And it's one thing to look at him now and go, yeah, well, look at him, you know, oh, it's cushy. But 10, 11, 12 years ago, that's scary. That's not cushy. Not to take anything away from, you know, younger kids. I think right now, though, if you're like a teenager and you like punk rock, well, you've got examples of punk rock bands that have platinum records. You've got bands that are making millions of dollars. We didn't have that, you know? So we weren't choosing that. That's a different choice, you know? And when you do that, you're still choosing MTV.
Once we started doing things ourselves and we saw that we were going on that path, I think that's when the No MTV symbol came about. It was so empowering in a way.
And it feels sort of like if the Bouncing Souls do well enough and sell a lot of records and don't use MTV, just maybe like we're tipping the scales a little bit towards like a band can do it yourself.
That was when we were like, okay, let's put out our own record.
Putting a CD out, it's just everything was a fiasco. The studio, We recorded at this place called The Warehouse in Philly, and the sound blows so bad. It sounds so bad.
The studio changed engineers, and the guy was an asshole. It just sucked. The whole experience kind of sucked.
It was like a transition period musically, because we were just trying anything as long as it was cohesively a song. That's what that record is. It's just like us learning how to play together. And so the music is like everywhere. It's kind of directionless. There's like hardcore, and then it's like, what is that over there?
I think they had this stuff recorded, and they were like, oh, we can't afford to put it out. We need all this money. And I was like, how much money do you need? And they were like, oh, it's like $2,000. We don't. I was like, that's not that much money. It's nothing.
Tim Chunks borrowed the money from his brother-in-law. We called it Chunksaw Records because we borrowed the money from Tim.
Because he talks like this, Tim Chunksaw. So Chunksaw Records. He says at everything.
You and you and you.
You. Timmy Chunks.
Come here. You.
Come here, Nettie Rose, Come here, Nettie Rose,
Hey, you guys. And that was like our imitation of Timmy.
I remember the first time he came up with it. I just remember hearing it and being like, what the hell are you doing? You. It was insane.
So Chunksaw was like just named after Timmy Chunks. And the logo was like a little cartoon of Timmy Chunks' head from like the first Token Entry, Beneath the Streets record.
We found the apartment on Hamilton Street. In general, people were kind of disappointed because we didn't have this huge house. We had to leave the ramp, and we had no possibility for shows anymore.
It was a brick building, and it really heated up, and it was kind of shaped like a big cardboard box.
Just like they'd fumigated it like a week before we got there or something. In the room that ended up being mine and Shal's, the floor was like, I'm not even kidding, it was like just covered in dead cockroaches.
Pots and pans in the sink, and clothes everywhere, and just junk. Like, hey, I found this sign. Oh, just what we needed, a Goya bean sign.
We had one of those huge water balloon launchers, those giant slingshots, and we could go on the roof. And one block in either direction was a bar. So we'd go on the roof at like 2 a.m. when the bars started letting out and try and hit people coming out of the bars.
Like they'd come out of the bar, and a water balloon would like right by them. They'd be like.
People would call the cops, and we'd be like, shit, and we'd be like crawling back into the house, shut off all the lights.
You're just a bunch of kids that have nothing to do, so you make movies.
We did the karate thing, and there's like, that makes us look like karate masters, but just a few simple camera tricks.
We're like this rough gang of hooligans, Santa Clauses, and we like beat up Lamar.
The best one of that was the Brian giving birth to Rob.
You just have a ton of fun. That was all it was. It was just always fun.
At that house was where we first wrote Joe Lies. And that was the song that changed everything.
Just testing this song out. Hope you like it. You like playing it? No, bro, pretend that it's really good already. Yeah, fake my song. It's fucking bad. It's really awesome. You don't like it, like right off.
When we wrote Joe Lies, it was like some kind of epiphany. We're like, oh, right, 3 chords.
It was just happened so easily too. One of those weird moments.
Wait 20 seconds. What the hell note is that? You playing Crimson and Clover? Come on, we're gonna be jerking off here. Just play the one note.
Let's be boring and play the one note.
Yeah, less is more, Pete.
Listen, I got some ideas here. Let me try them.
Alright.
Yeah, Mr. Confrontational Man. That is I.
Just sit there, dumb me up, and play that dumb bass line over and over while I think and spank.
The lyrics are good. Like the music is good. I was like, that's a full like roller coaster of a song where it takes you up the big steep hill and you go down the huge drop and you do the loop and you do the crazy twist, and then you do another loop, and then you just cruise back into the end. Like, from beginning to end, it was just a full, like, awesome song. I was like, that's good songwriting. I was like, that song kicks ass. And then after that, they started cranking out, like, Neurotic. These are the quotes from my favorite 80s movies. You know, like, and I was riding in the van when they had that idea, you know, they're like, just started quoting songs. I'm like, we should make that a song.
So driving down in the van, I wrote this one. It's called, These Are the Quotes from Our Favorite 80s Movies. Yeah! 1, 2, 3, 4. He's cool. He's hot. He's from the valley. He's not.
I just realized right then, it's like they just wrote a killer song in 2 hours. It's like they are unstoppable.
We sold out City Gardens, and that was like 800 people. That's when we're like we got to go on tour, you know, like not just like be a local band.
Whoa, shit. We really fucked that up. That was awesome.
Hobble Pod was like the blessed first vehicle, you know, it went forever, and if you could ever believe that your car had a personality or, you know, was alive in any way and looked after you and your safety and well-being in any way, that van did.
It was a hobble. It was spray painted, and it was just like, you know, pull me over, written all over it.
It was like a brown Dodge van that coated with stickers and tags, and that's what was our home for years. We loved that van, you know, it was like a member of the band.
It had its little problems here and there, you know. That's because we were pushing it a little hard, you know. It had to be like, hey guys, take it easy, you know. Just give me a new water pump, and that's all I need.
They had one of those clams on the roof, and they had loaded it down once too heavy, and it collapsed the roof. So there was like a broomstick in the middle of the van holding the roof up. That thing stank.
Yeah, man, we're out of here. US tour '93. Yeah, man.
I think one transition was when they toured with Lifetime. They were an established band, and they brought the Souls along, and they got people who had never seen them before, heard them.
There wasn't really any expectations. We didn't expect anyone to show up because no one knew us. Hey, look, there's 10 people here. Let's play and kick butt.
We would stop at kids' houses all the time. I remember in South Dakota, we would go like jumping off cliffs.
The first couple of tours that we did were all about that, just about like fun stuff and finding adventures.
It was more of a vacation. I mean, I didn't really do anything. I was just like, huh, all right, I'll grab that, you know, and sold the shirts.
We never ate at restaurants, and we never stayed at motels. We had like a loaf of bread in the van and like a jar of peanut butter.
We brought the propane stove, we camped out, cooked food for everybody.
This is our last song. We need a place to stay, you know, Greg would say. Sometimes you'd luck into a great place, and sometimes you'd stay at a place where there's like cockroaches crawling on your face and some guy's got a chicken bone through his earlobe or something, you know?
That's when we met Margie too. She was booking the tour for Lifetime.
We just became really friends with Margie, and we're like, book us another tour right away. Book us another tour right away. We want a tour, we want a tour, we want a tour. And we're like, that winter we did like another big tour. It was like just by ourselves. 1993 Drink Coffee and Destroy tour, and brought Rob Santello, and we're like, Rob, you'll be our tour manager. It was really funny because he was like, you want me to manage your band? I can't even manage my life.
Have you seen my room? Have you seen my life? Yeah, I'll organize your tour. In retrospect, it was fun, and at the time I remember bitching a lot.
Okay, here's the situation. Our parents went away on a week's vacation and we're lost. Hey, you want that thing to turn into an anal probe? That's where it's gonna wind up, buddy. Blah, blah. Pete snaked my swing. I don't want to be touched. Don't touch me. There. Don't touch me. Ow! I'm getting punched in the face. I got popped in the eye.
Oh my God, it's like I'm burning off bad karma or something. I don't know what I did to deserve this kind of thing.
They would just go and go and go and go all the time. Back then it wasn't like, you know, you're going on the big headline tour, the support tour, it's just like tour because no one knows you, and like the more touring, the better.
And we figured, well, we don't need a place to live if we stay on tour.
The more they went on tour, the less money they could earn at home to pay the rent for the apartment. Eventually shifted into like homelessness and really squatting around. There was a whole era after the box where we all kind of squatted at White Lotus, which was a futon shop.
It was like a lesbian-owned and operated, like, kind of collective. The likelihood of me getting a job there was just like, you know, this punk kid with a mohawk, like, what, you know. And I would go in there, and Kate was like the one who I'd talk to, and I kind of developed a little friendship because I'd keep going in there and bugging her.
He would walk or skateboard right past the futon shop, which had a huge, you know, plate glass window, or we'd be like hanging out in the driveway. So I would see him go by all the time, and I'd be like, that kid.
We got to know her, and I sort of wormed my way into her heart eventually, like, and she hired me.
So I was like, fine, I'll give you a job, but like the burden of all mankind is resting on your shoulders, so you better do well.
You just had to make like 20 futons every week, and it took about an hour roughly to make each futon. Like really good handmade futons, and it was like a whole art to it.
I train him, I teach him how to do it, which takes like 8 hours, you know, totally grueling. And then he's like, oh yeah, and I'm going on tour tomorrow, but I'll be back in 3 weeks. And I was like, no, see, you can't say that now. But he totally had me, and he knew it.
Like many jobs that ever happened in Soul's world, one person gets their foot in the door and 10 more people stumble in behind.
All the boys would be rolling in. Hey, what you doing? What you doing? What you doing?
Greg and Chow lived at lived at the futon shop. Like they would like sleep on the futons in the front showroom, you know, and like, you know, he'd wake up to like people looking at him in the windows, you know. And Kate just kind of like hired them and let them stay and let them work there, and just kind of slowly became our den mother.
It provided a home for us, it provided a job for us. It was just like a place for us to be and like have our little headquarters, you know, where we would like plot to take over the world.
I wanted to change. It was one of those times in my life when I was like, I gotta move on, I've gotta shake this off.
You always had this long ponytail.
So I just went to the show and made a big dramatic show of it, cut it off and threw it out.
He threw it out into the crowd, and somebody caught it. And whoever caught it originally gave it back to him. He's like, no, the fuck, dude.
Here's my hair, I cut it off for my big garden show.
You know, and I don't know, someone ended up with it, and we heard later it was on eBay for like whatever. Someone was selling it with the story of the... It's out there somewhere in the world.
I always thought it was kind of symbolic of times that are changing.
Right around the time we wrote Joe Lies, I remember I was at my dad's house and we had a show at the Roxy. There was an old suit in the closet, and I just picked it up and grabbed it and said, I'm gonna wear this tonight. That was sort of a turning point. When I wore the suit and the tie, we started to sound a little different, look different, and it was evolving into something new.
The Good, the Bad, the Argyle was kind of our first. To me, it was our first real release. I consider that like the first record. Greenball Crew to me was just kind of like a thought that I wish I never had. You know?
Most of it was already recorded from 7 inches. That's why it was titled The Good, the Bad, and the Argyle. It was like some good stuff, some bad stuff, and the Argyle EP.
The truth is that it's actually really beautiful. It's just got this innocent kind of energy to it.
Sing a song of old school, I don't really care where you were or who you know. Sing a song of old school, we don't really care what you have to say about this show.
That was like when I fell in love with them, you know, and not like fell in love like I wanted to see their butts, fell in love like, wow, these are fucking awesome people, and look at them up there, like, these fucking jerk-offs who work for me and can't keep their feet clean are like up there making this music, screaming. Look at Greg, he's so quiet as a person, and he's up there like screaming.
Lies! Lies!
The summer of '94 that came out, And then we ended up doing shows with bands like Rancid and The Offspring, like when those bands were getting kind of bigger.
Youth Brigade came out to Jersey and played a show. It was like everybody, Lifetime, us, all these bands played this show at Middlesex County College. And there we are at the futon shop. We get a phone call from Sean Stern. Hey guys, thinking about blah, like he wanted to like sign us.
BYO wanted to put the record out. At that point, we just wanted to always own the rights to our stuff.
We didn't want to sign. We were like, DIY, but can you help? You know?
I remember them calling me and being like, hey, BYO wants to do a P&D deal with us, a package and a distribution deal. And I was like, no way. And Brian was just like, Sean Stern called us. Oh, we talked to Sean Stern on the phone. And they were more blown away by the fact that they talked to Sean Stern from Youth Brigade than like the record deal was just kind of secondary.
So they picked up the Good, the Bad, and the Argyle. We had pressed 2,000 and sold 2,000 on our own already, just like from touring. So we did like BYO's 10-year anniversary. It was like 10 years of BYO in your face. It was like us, Youth Brigade in 7 seconds. It was like our heroes, you know? It's the greatest fucking tour ever.
And they were like, you should come on tour with us. And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, I got work to do, you know?
That was a gnarly tour, actually, because the second day of tour of like this fucking 7-week tour or whatever it was, we played and 7 seconds was up and I was in the pit like going nuts and I fucking crack and fucking whoosh, and totally tore the ligaments in my knee, tore the anterior cruciate ligament, ACL. Like I was like, duh! It's like full, you need reconstructive surgery. It's like hardcore, you know? The shit was swole up to here.
Brian had problems with his knee since he was a kid, and it wasn't strong.
Nowhere to live, no money, and we had the tour. We had the tour, you know. The very next night, I like went up and like out of habit jumped on the first song. Was I Like Your Mom? Pete's like no 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 no, and I'm like ah, and like fully fucking exploded again, and I just went down, and I was just like on the ground, like I kept playing, I didn't stop playing, and I'm like, and my head's like. It was total fucking pain, like I can't even describe. I just like played this, and they didn't know what was going on. They're like, oh, Greg's like, oh, I guess Brian's gonna sit on the stage and for the show. I'm like,
okay, we need to figure out like, did you sprain it? Is it broken? Do we need to go to a hospital? And the whole time he was like, total cranky Brian, so it's hard to get the answer. But you know, like, I know I need the surgery. That's it. Nothing will help me. It's not gonna help me if we go to a doctor or whatever. Okay. Can't argue with people when they're hurt or sick. It's always a bad idea.
It happened like later on that same tour. Like I was like horsing around like with this punk girl that I liked at some show.
Does she really know how to give a hickey, or does she think that's a hickey?
She's not about hickeys, dude. She's about taking a bite out of fucking crime, man. She said, I want you, and I said, I lust you, and she said, I want to bite you, and she bit me, and then she kept biting me, and she was biting me a lot all night, biting me really hard. She bit me a lot.
And like at one point, she like came up from nowhere and like tackled me, and my knee went and did it again, and just like the thing was fucking the horse shit, man. My knee was just fucking garbage wrapped up in skin. It was like so gnarly.
Look at you, man. Look at him. Look at your fucking neck, dude. Look at your knee. Look at you. It's one night, one fucking girl, and look at you. Well put. I'm sorry, man. That's my beer, dude. That's my medicine, man. What are you doing?
It's kind of funny, but I'm sure he was in total pain the whole time. He was a total fucking trooper, you know? He's like, I'm gonna finish the tour, I'm gonna finish it. He's like, fuck you, you know?
We walked around for months with like his leg duct taped together, like duct tape, layers of duct tape around his leg to like support his knee because it was like the only thing he could do.
I somehow figured out that I could get him free surgery at St. Peter's because it's a Catholic charities hospital and he was a poor, dirty punk with actually no job and no money.
I got operated on by college students. I got the reconstructive surgery for free. Filled out all this paperwork. I'm indigent. I got nothing. And I had just like 3 months I couldn't walk. And I had to, I lived at Kate's house, and she'd like make food, all my meals for me, like walk me to the bathroom, like the whole deal, like.
And he kind of grew a beard and was just laying on in his bed. He couldn't move, and he was just. It was kind of like Larry Flint, you know, like where he's like locked up in his bedroom, and then all of a sudden he's just like disheveled.
We wanted to keep company, but we'd all end up like in the other room, like having a party, you know? And like we'd hear him in the bedroom, like, what's going on out there? What's going on? What are you doing? You know? So instead of like making him feel better, he'd just be like, oh, they're all here. They're all having fun. They're all having fun without me.
And then one day he got up and he was like, I'm better. And he left.
And that's when I just disappeared into New York City. And I'm like, I'm going to the Lower East Side. That's where I want to be. I can be homeless there, you know, and just went and just started crashing on the street and I was also really depressed, and I was just drinking like all day and all night, and that was like how I was able to sleep like on a piece of cardboard on the sidewalk.
Brian would tell me stories like, yeah, I was at fucking Continental and I got all drunk and I got into a fight with a bunch of Hell's Angels. And I was just like, what?
Stories of, you know, drunken revelry in New York, and I stayed in the squad. I met these squatters, you know, and I was in the Chelsea Hotel with the drummer from Gigi Allen's band.
Brian went through this period where he just, you know, smelled a lot and he drank a lot, you know, he didn't bathe, and he just went nuts for a while.
The smell was insane. It was way beyond your average body odor.
You could sense that tension, like, hey, I'm holding it together and you're just being a fuck off. That's great if you want to be a fuck off, but it's fucking up our band.
It just got to a point where I was like rock bottom, and those guys had like an intervention in like Kate and the band. And it was at Johnny X's house, and they're like, all of a sudden, like everybody's sitting there and looking at me, and I'm like, and they like started talking to me, and it was weird. And I'm like, oh, this was planned or something.
It was good because everyone just told him how we felt about how he was living. And he started to change.
It just felt fucking weird and like wrong, and I'm like, you know. But they got through to me, you know. I'm like, okay, all right, okay. I'm like, went and shaved my head, and it was weird. It was like I felt different, and I, you know, looked in the mirror. I'm like, just started getting it back in shape, and like not drinking so much, and like got into like living healthy, and got into Tai Chi, and like discovered the Shaolin Temple in New York. For 3 years I trained at the Shaolin Temple, and it changed my life. It worked my way into living in a squat, which was great. That's when I moved into Serenity.
I mean, it was an abandoned building that had been rigged up pretty much to work.
I went there a couple times when Brian was living there. He did amazing things with his room.
We went in there and did some sheetrocking and some spackling and sanded the floor.
I remember going there. They had TV, they had hot water, they had a phone. There's no toilet right in their spot.
He had a, you know, some kind of little like porta potty device, which was like, you know, pretty disgusting.
But they were living on, you know, 9th or 10th in Manhattan for free.
You know, Greg was floating around here and there, and Pete was living in Hoboken. So Brian kind of like got the door open.
It's just kind of like got us all in one by one into that world, and sort of took over the East Village.
Brian was sort of like the Lewis and Clark of New York City for us, really.
Through all of that, Brian kicked open more for the band.
We were doing 6 shows with Social Distortion on the East Coast.
We were on our way to the last show. It was in Philly. We were on our way in the Havapod, and we're like rolling up in line for some toll.
And I turn my head and I see people like driving sort of in tandem with us, but like 7 lanes over, going like this.
Some guys like yelling at us, like from another car. It's like yelling, like, "You fuck with your band, you're on fire." We're like, "What? Fuck you," you know.
And then I see the guy's mouth. Your van's on fire. And I was like, like totally could see it.
Shao turns just like, what? We're smoking.
Slams it in a park. Like we're moving. Like maybe only like 15 miles an hour. But slams it in a park, gets out. And then as soon as we're not moving anymore, there's smoke everywhere because the van's on fire.
Fuck. Everyone out.
Everyone out.
It was fully smoking, and there was flames underneath it.
We're causing this major traffic jam, but we decide to go in and crawl underneath the loft and get all the equipment out, because this is all that we have in the world.
The scramble to get everything out was just like, no one even said anything. It was just stuff started getting thrown out.
It started raining. The minute we took all the gear out.
We're like hiding behind the highway divider. It was like the van's totally on fire. We're like, it's gonna blow.
Shao ran to the toll booth to get a fire extinguisher, not helping him at all. Don't care, could care less. They're like, call a tow truck.
They wouldn't give it to him, so he just grabbed it. He runs back to the hoverpod, sprays it in a huge cloud.
Trying to put it out.
And the traffic is everywhere around us and people are beeping. And I don't know about you, but if I was driving my car and there was an old van on fire, I would not pull up next to it and beep at it.
It was so sad, and there we were out in the rain with all our equipment, like, and then, you know, they called the tow truck and just towed it off, and that was the last we saw of it.
Towed the hoverpod away. We waved it goodbye. A faithful friend.
So many tours. The thing was the best. And it went out in a blaze of glory.
Mike Ness was like, when he paid Bad Luck that night at the show, he's like, this one goes out to Bouncing Souls because their van caught on fire and they didn't make it today. It's called Bad Luck.
And then something happened to me that day. Like, I crawled into a van that was on fire to get someone's guitar amp. What? You know, like, it's love.
They had bought the Jewish Community Center half bus.
The Jewish Community Center housing bus, which we call the Sucky bus.
Every band seems to go through this, like, we're gonna get the mini school bus, it's cool. Because it's the perfect size, it's a little bigger than a van, but they never run for shit, and this one, like, fucking sucked.
I remember them telling me they were gonna buy it. We're gonna buy this bus. And I said, don't do it. Don't buy a bus. It's a curse. All bands buy buses. It never works. Don't fucking do it. They did it anyway, and it was a sucker bus.
We thought we were stepping up, but really we're stepping back.
It just couldn't handle the highway punishment of long driving, and we built this loft in the back that was really heavy. We used 2x4s and big heavy plywood to make it even heavier than it already was. It was just a van engine.
It broke down like, must have been 10 times. We must have dropped like $15,000 in that thing.
We got 3 shows with the Offspring in Florida, and it was right as Offspring had just blown up and gotten giant.
We went on a tour of playing, you know, coffee shops and basements, bars with nobody, and boom, we're in front of 2,000 people in Fort Lauderdale opening up for the Offspring. And Tom Wilson was doing sound.
So we met him and we're like, wow, you're Tom Wilson, like you did TSOL, you did the Vandals, you did Dead Kennedys, like tell us about the Dead Kennedys, tell us about the Vandals, you know, tell us about TSOL. And so like we sat around with him one night and drank like one of those nights after the show, and we really got to be friends with him. And he's like, I'd like to work with you guys are cool.
Offspring sold like whatever millions of records they sold. The next record Tom did was ours for nothing.
He was like a multi-million selling producer at this point. And he turned down Aerosmith and he turned down Kiss to do that Bouncing Souls record, Maniacal Laughter, which was so funny. Like we were nobody. We were on our own on Chunks-A, like with BYO distributing it.
We had a couple songs and probably had like half the record written. We were in California for about 3 weeks.
And Sean wanted us to sign over to BYO, just sign to the label. And we wanted to keep the rights to the songs.
They go to the Stearns, they're like, we don't have the money, so we want to borrow it from you to do this manufacturing and distribution deal, which is basically, you know, we want you, the record company, to pay for it, but you're not going to own it in the end, you know?
So we were just kind of hoping Sean would give us the money, loan it to us.
But the Stearns agreed, and, you know, the Souls, out of all the bands that have been on BYO, I would say that the Souls are probably, you know, the best friends with the Stearns.
For all intents and purposes, we're on BYO, except that we own the stuff. It's on Chunks-A, technically. We had a studio date with Tom booked and everything. We had like 4 songs or something. Sean was like, what the hell, are you gonna give me a 7-inch? Yeah. We're like, nah, dude, we're gonna write some more songs. Don't worry about it. And like, went down in the Youth Brigade's basement and like wrote Lamar Vinoy and like wrote a bunch of songs. Like wrote half that record, like, nah, because we're just like so on tour and so in that head. And it was just like boom, 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 everything.
We were sitting outside the studio taking a break. A black Range Rover drove up, and out walks Gene Simmons.
It's like, hi, I'm Gene. Hi, Gene. We're like, fuck yeah, you are, you know?
Who are you? And he said, I'm fine. He said, no, who are you? And he said, oh, I'm Shal. And I said, who's your band? He said, the Bouncing Souls.
We were in the control room with Tom Wilson. We were mixing Lamar Vinoy, listening to Lamar Vinoy. We just tracked it or whatever. And they came in and they were like, well, here's the whole band Kiss, like in the room listening to Lamar Vinoy. We're like, this is so weird, you know?
And they were like, this is really good, man. You guys are really good. Like, you're Kiss. stop it, and hear Kiss, and just stand right there. You know, just look at you.
There's days of Greg watching Jeopardy with Gene Simmons, which is freakish.
And I like sat between the two of them and like watched like the O.J. Simpson trial, like just bullshitted, hung out with Kiss, like wow, man.
You can hear our maniacal laughter that everyone is unified. We're a live band and we're playing in that way, and it comes off on the record and it explodes from the record.
What you hear on maniacal laughter, essentially, that was essentially just our live set.
The Jewish community housing bus finally shit the brick. We broke down on the way to the show in Austin.
Middle of nowhere, and I was like, wait, I have AAA plus. We can get towed 100 miles. 100 miles, and it was like 99 miles to San Antonio.
But there was no way they were going to let us ride now as it was towed.
So we were like, okay, everyone hide in the back, hide in your bunks, cover yourself up.
So Kate and Chow pretended to be a couple, like, you know, like driving around the sucker bus, you know, being like hippies in the truck.
Shal and I are like, yeah, we just got married, we're driving around the country, and the guy's like a lonely truck driver, so he like wants to know all about it.
Wig really had to take a piss, and like everyone, you piss in a jar, like you lay on your side and you piss in a jar in your bunk, like that was just how it went, you know. And Wig couldn't do that, like hadn't done that ever. Would always just like hold it until we pulled over or whatever.
So he was like in his bunk for like an hour, like, I gotta go to the bathroom so bad. I gotta go to the bathroom so bad. He's like, oh, dude.
And I remember that was very traumatic for Wig. He was like,
and when we got there, like the boys had used every empty bottle, peed in everything, eaten like scraps of stuff out of wrappers that were back there.
The promoter came and got us like just in time, like got to the show just in time.
We rode in the back, trapped in the back of a towed car all day. So I'm having fun now. It's awesome. It's cool as hell. Did everyone spell fun?
Played the show, and like right after we played, there was this giant like skinhead riot. It was like 15 or 20 skinheads just like went apeshit.
It's a twister! It's a twister! On the M!
Some skinheads threw a Christmas tree through a bay window after the show.
And it was just like, gosh, the lights were like sparking, and then they ran out the door like a knife and was like stabbing cars.
I wasn't there because I stayed behind with the bus to try and get the bus fixed.
Oh, it's your oil pump, it's $600, and this thing is $300 or whatever. And we all just stood in the parking lot looking at each other, and we were like, it's over. Started piling our shit out, rented a minivan, drove a minivan for the rest of the tour.
It was only like a week, but it was like a long, cold, cramped week.
I always wanted to see Europe. I wanted to just check it out. Youth Brigade brought us over in '96, and for me, it was awesome.
It felt like it had been so long that we finally got to Europe, you know. And we got there and no one knew who we were, of course, and we had no records in any stores.
Totally lost every day, reading German maps, like, where's the Strasse? You know, like, we don't know where the fuck we are.
We played a lot of squats. I got attacked by a dog on stage in Germany.
It was cool. Like, we just had fun with the Stearns. It was just sort of one giant party.
Early 1996 to early 1997, it was just like light speed, you know? It was just... They toured with bigger bands.
At the end of that year, we were on tour with the Descendants.
Brett Gurewitz is out to see them. And I guess he was kind of out to check us out too, and then like asked us after lunch, and we're like, all right, we'll go to a free lunch. Epitaph, we're so punk. But after like a 2-hour-long lunch with him, we were like, wow, fucking, that's great. Like he just sat for 2 hours and talked and told us about how he runs the label.
He said, you want to fly to LA and I'll show you the record label? And we said, yeah.
That was all we needed. We're like, these people are cool. Everyone loves what they're doing here. Everyone's psyched. It was like such a good vibe there. I'm like, this place is great. This is fucking cool.
BYO was like totally, you know, to like do whatever you want to do, because like you're getting bigger and we support you and whatever you want to do.
After they finished the manufacturing distribution deal and they could sign with anybody, any major, any indie, any of those labels would have taken them. That was cool to see them be like, you already fucking dissed us, you know? And, you know, go with Epitaph.
The self-titled record we wrote at Serenity in my apartment.
There's some glimmers of good stuff on the self-titled record, but a lot of it's unfinished ideas.
You don't do that. Fuck that thing. I thought you did, and I'm trying to play it. It's stupid. This is what I'm asking.
I don't go da da. I go da 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 da.
Well, da 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 da.
It goes with the drums. It's like da 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 da.
That was like right coming out of the Maniacal era, and everyone was a little just like, what am I? Where am I? I've been homeless for 5 years. What's going on? We're on Epitaph. Recording it was fun. We did it with Tom Wilson.
It was fun because like that time like we had like a lot of friends in California, and then we just like record and then go hang out with friends.
We won't fight your dad, but we better fight your mother. We're gonna have a party. 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 Okay, one more time.
I think between doing part of the Warped Tour and then having an album out on Epitaph, it definitely helped us.
On the surface, everything was fine. The band was doing okay, but I was so introverted and I couldn't like break out of my shell.
Similar to the same thing I went through, you know, but like in his way, just like his demons, facing his demons, like questioning himself, questioning everything.
We went out on tour with the Pie Tasters, and I was just a drag to be around, and I would barely get through the shows. I couldn't really talk on stage.
And Greg came out and they played the whole set, and he never took the microphone off the mic stand.
Me and Pete were like just rocking out as hard as we could, and Greg was just like.
And I just remember thinking to myself, oh, that was the worst I've ever seen them.
That Pie Tasters tour, that was like the only time that I ever thought of going home. Like I was like, I'm just gonna go home. This sucks. I think that was the only time that I've ever thought about quitting the band.
Drinking and getting wasted wasn't doing anything for me anymore. And on top of that, I wanted to remember what it was like to be a kid and have fun without doing anything. It seems so simple, but I had forgotten that.
You're going to India. You've been to India before. Yes. Shall, like, understand why you is from India. I'm from there. And now, like, the whole band is leaving. How long are you going to be in India? 2 weeks.
You spend your life in search of a more sincere life, and sometimes you go places to find it.
Experiencing all of life that you possibly can experience, I wanted to experience every last bit. And every opportunity that came up, like going to India, I'm going.
I think that Pete and Brian were always just open to whatever anyone's deal is, especially it's like, you're my bro, you're my band, we're married. You want me to go to India? I'll go to India.
I remember thinking, I guess if it works for the Beatles, maybe it'll work for them.
I'm sure I probably made jokes and scoffed at it that, what is Pete gonna do in India, you know? Is there beer?
Came back to America and it looked totally different. It wasn't so serious. It wasn't this big oppressive cloud that I was walking around with. It was really just me that I created.
They came back and they had a really good attitude about everything, so I guess things had gone well. And Pete had a picture of him giving a monkey a banana, which I thought was pretty cool. That's what I was really jealous of. I was like, you got to hang out with a monkey. That's great.
Shal, you said the trip to India was an important part of your career, but the trip to India had really nothing to do with music or recording or being on a label. It had to do with the relationship with all the people in the band.
It just took a lot of effort to like take a trip, not as bandmates, but just as people. People had just been doing shit nonstop for the last 10 years, and then stepping outside of that, but still being together, seeing like, do I still like you? Do I still want to do this? You know, but luckily the answer was yes. You guys are all right.
1, 2, 3, 4. Off to find. This is on the get on. Off we go.
started the Red Hopeless Romantic, and we were all kind of in it together again.
First time I heard Kid, I cried.
Now's your chance, we are here, we make you dance. It's kind of a funny line, and maybe I'm reading into it, but to me, that's their whole essence. You get a room full of kids, and they have really stressful lives. They may not be stressful by some standards, but it's stressful to them. You know, their parents are on their back, the school is in their face, they're scared about the future, they don't know what they're doing, they don't know who their friends are, and they don't know who they are sometimes. They get a band like the Souls, and for an hour, they don't have to worry about any of that stuff, and you see it. When you see that, you really understand them, and it's in that lyric to me. It's the idea that you're not alive yesterday, you're not alive tomorrow, but you're alive at that moment. You know, if you can grab something for that moment, you have a chance.
In retrospect, like, that's the time when, like, some personal problems, like, started kind of developing.
Like each of you, when did you discover punk rock and get into it?
Well, that discovering punk rock was happening all the way. You know, like, mostly like,
except for me.
Shal didn't like punk, and it was just like he just reacted against everything.
The records just reflect perfectly how the band was.
Shal like, I'm not gonna play fast, and I hate punk, and he would just say things like that, and it was like he had all these hang-ups that you couldn't write around.
Nothing was really that bad. Like, the tours after that were pretty cool. The Warped Tour was great. Like, the album was doing really well.
I didn't want him to leave the band. That was the last thing I wanted. And that was the last thing everyone wanted. We wanted it to work.
What he used to be was different. What I used to be was different. Everything was different. People, I think, grow apart. I don't know what happened.
Ultimately, there's a divorce, you know, and people make a huge deal out of it because they're a band, they live public lives, they want to know, like, what's the dirt? But you know what? When your friend's parents get divorced, you don't say, so you're banging the next door neighbor.
I think as fans, they have a right to know the bare basics, and that's kind of what I give them. And I just said it wound up being a personality conflict, which is kind of what it was, in a way.
I don't want to make him look really bad because he was my friend for a really long time.
It was a hugely traumatic thing in all of our lives.
What happened? I have no clue. It was around September of 1999.
I remember seeing Shal then. He was giving me a little bit more, like, I'm kind of spaced out. But I was like, whatever, he's doing his own thing. He started to hit the drums later, which I always broke his balls about.
When he would get drunk, he would kind of say kind of weird, cryptic things. And I would just be like, he's drunk, whatever.
You took a lot for granted, you know, because everyone around you had some kind of, you know, really weird something about their nature, you know, that made you love them more. And Shal was just like that, you know.
I don't want to paint a bad picture of him because he's not a bad guy, but little things like talking to himself, which isn't that abnormal, but in this situation it was.
He wasn't taking care of himself, and he was partying, and that was fine. Everyone was doing that.
When we went to Europe with a Yale and Lagwagon, it became clear that things were totally changing, you know.
He wanted to leave the tour. Sometimes I'm like, maybe we should have just stopped then.
We'd just gotten to Europe, and we're like, you know, we shouldn't go home. We should just deal and kind of carry on, you know. Then he started getting really weird. He started freaking and not being himself at all.
That was like one of the final steps, though, when they were on tour with the Van Lagwagon. And I just remember like them calling me up, and he was telling me about all the things that Shal was doing, about walking on stage naked, you know, kissing people's feet, putting cigarettes out on his arm and stuff.
A little hostile here and there, like a little vibe to him, and I was just like, what is going on?
It looked like Shal, you know, it talked like Shal, but it wasn't Shal. It was like, it was really kind of, really difficult and heartbreaking because, like I said, it's like you're looking at your friend, but you can't reach him. You can't get in there.
You stand there and you look at somebody that you've been looking at for years, and They look the same, you know, their hair is the same, their clothes are the same, their eyes are the same, but that person's gone.
He wasn't the person that I knew as a friend at all anymore, so it affected me in the way that I lost a friend, you know.
One part I'm like, I think Shal's crazy. And then another second I'm like, is Shal trying to get attention somehow? Or like, I just didn't know what was going on. I was like, totally confused.
Our first take on it was, why is he acting like a dick? This can't, you know, like, this can't be real, you know, like, why is he behaving like this? But apparently it's something that he might not have control over, maybe does, who knows?
Is he fucking with you? Is he spaced out? Is he talking to someone that's not there? Does he see someone? Or is he just trying to get attention?
I gave it a lot of thought as to like what was going on, and I think I just kind of burnt myself out. I was like, because I kept coming up with no solution, no answer.
I mean, he was having like real-time hallucinations, you know. I mean, really, he was seeing things that weren't there, felt he was experiencing things that weren't happening. He was being abusive to himself, physically abusive.
He played like he didn't really care, and he was just going through it. He wasn't playing well, and he didn't even know it.
Shao was just going through something really fucked up, and I didn't know what it was, and I didn't know how to help him, but we all tried, and it seemed like he didn't want to even admit that there's something wrong, you know?
Shao would not acknowledge his behavior, and he would not acknowledge that this feeling that we had shared was not there anymore.
Definitely like the worst time of my life. It was just totally something I couldn't make sense of for a really long time.
They did the East Coast Fuck You tour with H2O.
Out of maybe 12 shows, 2 were okay.
We had an intervention at his apartment. Just go to your parents' house. Just go with them. We love you. You know, like a whole intervention.
We had like 5 days off, and we had like a long weekend left.
What's up, man? Here we are at the Philly Chalk Show.
Yeah?
Well, actually, we're in the truck outside the Philly Chalk Show.
Yeah.
Trocadero. Big show.
Date today is, what are we looking at? December
2nd.
December 2nd.
Yeah?
2nd.
You guys looking forward to rocking tonight?
Sure, man.
Yeah?
Always looking forward to rocking.
Very good.
What else is there to really look forward to, you know?
Right.
Besides rock.
Any special surprises you guys are going to pull out of the hat tonight?
Everything that happens is going to be a surprise.
Everything under the sun, man.
There you go. All right, gentlemen. Let's have a good time.
He came to the show and was like the same, like just like, you know, he just, you couldn't even look at him in the eye.
He played the show, and it sucked, and the band sucked.
And just playing songs totally slow and like off and fucked up, and like he was a great drummer, but he was just like he wasn't even playing.
The kids probably weren't picking up on as much. You're standing off the corner of the stage and you're seeing it. You see this interaction with Pete, who's the nicest guy in the world, glaring back at Shao, who's been his friend for 15 years, and he's pissed.
All these emotions, all these feelings and memories, like that once were and just didn't exist now. I'm in front of all these people, thousands of people, Philly, yeah, I love you, man. You know, it didn't matter. It was like, I'm alone in this world, and Shao has to leave this band.
The Souls gave him every inch that they could, you know, like everyone else in the band. And he couldn't perform as a drummer by the end. He couldn't play through the set because he was so fucked up. So, you know, they had no choice.
I couldn't be around him anymore. I couldn't be in a band with him, that was for sure.
There's no possible way we could possibly write songs with him.
His family wanted everyone to get together and talk about it.
So we're like, okay, yeah, we want everything to work. We don't want this either, you know, like we always wanted it to work.
You know, they sat down and talked with his family and stuff, but there reaches a point where, you know, you have a grown man, and your friends can try to intercede when they see that you're not doing well, but, you know, ultimately we're all on kind of our own road. You can't force somebody to be well if they don't feel that they have a problem. And he never did.
Then a month later is when he left the band permanently.
He was sitting at his coffee shop across the street from his house, like he did every day, all day, We knew that's where we'd find him, and we just, got together and walked over there. Walked in and talked to him, and we're like, this is fucked up. This isn't working out, dude.
It was really short. I just said, Shao, we have to ask you to leave the band.
There's no way to help him, so just kind of had to say goodbye and just be like, hope you get your shit together.
He didn't really respond. He just what are you talking about?
I said I didn't want this, I so didn't want this, and that's how I left it with Shao. So I didn't. Nobody fucking wanted to deal with any of that, Things were fine. That's the whole story.
And so people ask, oh, why'd you kick Shao out of the band? And you're like, you can't even start. You can't even, because it's so personal. It's so upsetting. It's so not explainable.
I haven't seen him since he got kicked out of the band.
I haven't been in touch with him since.
Saw him driving in my neighborhood last summer. I didn't speak with him, and then I don't know if that's for better or worse.
In order to accept this divorce in my mind, I kind of had to let go of the notion that he exists in the world.
I ran into him at Rutgers University. He's taking classes there, and he's doing music again. He's working with other people and doing music again. And he seems fine.
All I could hope is that if he does think about it, that he remembers what was good about this family and this life.
We created something great together, So that's forever, all those years starting the band, we created something. We were all dreaming the same dream, so it's such a bond, It's forever. I would like to talk on that level with him again.
Shao Kichi is, I'm still assuming, a big dreamer, and it's not in a bad way.
I mean, he would not have been in the band for 10 years if he was anything less than a really genuine person with a great heart. I hope he finds his way back.
I'm glad to have known him. And I miss that guy.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Shao Kichi. Fuck you, everybody. Shao's the best.
There was no doubt in Pete and Brian and Greg's mind that they wanted to make music together and still have this life, this great life that we've built,
We'd never dealt with a lineup change or ever, or anything like that. It was just whatever. We grew up together. We started the band in high school. It wasn't finding members or something. Oh my God, we have to find a new drummer. You know anybody? I guess we got to put an ad in the fucking Village Voice.
I think the ad was just Bouncing Souls need a drummer, phone number. They got a zillion phone calls the first day.
They're like, hey, this is fucking Joey from Queens. I want to come fucking rock with you guys. I fucking love it.
Yo, this is Mikey from the Bronx. This is Joey from Brooklyn. I'm looking to jam. I'll fucking jam. I'll come over. I got some drums in my basement, in my mom's house.
Hey, I don't know what this fucking whatever, man. I play drums. Hey, and we're just oh, dude. We're talking to all these people. I don't know.
We wanted someone who knew the band and who knew the songs and was kind of on the same vibe and wavelength as us.
I played Shao's last show. And I was playing in a band called Mephistopheles. I sat up in the balcony later and watched 1,400 kids go crazy for this band, and I was like, God, why can't I be in that band?
His friend saw the ad, and McDermott called, and he's like, yeah, this is Michael. I'm calling about the gig. I've met you guys before,
I was like, hey. We'll just jam. And he's like, no, we really want you to learn, a couple songs off of each record or something. And I was like, nah, I was like, dude, I was in Murphy's Law. I was like, we could just jam.
So he was just too cheap to go out and get the records to find the songs.
It's like $12, $13. I'm like, what if I don't get the fucking gig? Then I'm gonna spend $13 plus, you know, I gotta go to Manhattan, so there's gonna be tolls, gas. I know there's not gonna be parking. I can park on the street, but still.
And we started Hopeless Romantic. He comes in and fucking starts playing, and we're like, this is the guy.
Me and Brian like looked at each other and we're like, you know, like that. Totally, like he's the guy.
Pete called, and I was just getting off at 95. And he was like, hey, man, what's up? It's Pete. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? He's like, yeah, I just wanted to get, you know, I wanted to give you a buzz, you know, because we got done doing the auditions. And I'm like, yeah, and he's like, do you want to be in my band, man? And I was like, no way. You know, that was the coolest thing. And then I drove past like 10 blocks, 12 blocks past my street.
And McDermott coming in and just playing entirely a different style, just different guy in general, different person. I know that definitely put a big burst of wind in their sails.
I thought it was going to be like, all right, kid, learn the songs, here's the records. Come practice and we'll rock. But he was like, he wanted to like play each, like go through each song with us. Like he wanted to learn it live kind of instead of off the tape.
It was like starting over again.
We had been playing so sloppy. Like it's like from playing all these songs for so many years, drunk with Shal, just like from when we wrote them, it had morphed into these like other versions that were like much looser and sloppier. Teaching McDermott, I had to like relearn all the songs. Me and Pete like relearned how to play them correctly. And so we emerged like this fucking super tight band.
The first show actually was in Asbury Park.
So it was that much more like the home team, like yeah, big debut.
I remember standing with a crew of people that had been around the band for a while, and we're like, let's see what this guy's got. You know, they say he's good. And sure enough, he was good.
They made a lot of mistakes, but there it was. It was that old energy, back from the first time I ever saw them play. And hadn't seen it in years. And got so used to not seeing it that I forgot about it. And when I saw it, there it was.
We went to Australia on tour, and it was just like a whole new experience.
We've only been there once before, so like we're not really very big there or anything.
We got to learn from each other. We got to learn to live with each other. It was, you know, we could just jam. But some Australians saw some interesting shows, you know, saw some songs that if you knew the songs, you were like, wow, did they just extend that by like a minute?
It was like almost like a vacation, like halfway across the world, like to get to know each other.
How I spent my summer vacations, like we got McDermott, and fucking he doesn't give a shit. He's a great fucking drummer, and that's it. He's like, I play drums. That's what I do.
I think like that's the first record since Maniacal Laughter that we made that I'm like totally happy with. You know, like I totally love it.
Summer Vacation, I think that's a good record. That's a really solid record through and through. There's a maturity there that showed up.
It doesn't sound like anybody else. You know, it sounds like totally like them.
Feels great again, you know.
It's like, okay, how can I like stop time from happening so that this doesn't, you know, so we can live like this forever.
Don't know if I would have made it without these guys, you know? Like, they definitely fucking saved my life at least once, you know? And the band itself saved my life in general.
Seeing the world, developing relationships with people all over the world, learning how to sing properly. I'm so happy and grateful that I've had such a great life already. I'm only 31 years old.
I'm glad for like everything that's happened with us in the past 12 years, like every moment. You know, all the good and bad.
People always say, like, what's the best record, or what do you think the best record is? And with them, I've always thought the next record is the best record.
I don't really know what they have in store for us. So I don't know. I mean, I like to hear what they do, and I just wait for it.
Maybe in like 20 years, you know, maybe they'll be on like Gap commercials. Nah, I'm just kidding. Maybe they will.
It's possible that Chunks can be like, it could be like a record label like Epitaph or like BYO is. When those guys get, you know, earn their walkers, the Bouncing Souls label could like kind of take on that role.
I think if it ended today, that everyone would be satisfied with the progress. I know I would be, you know, I think they would be, you know, in their place in history.
If it ended today, I'd be like, I win. I'm 32 and I have done exactly what I want. You know, I win. And if it doesn't end, I hope it. I can't see it ending. I don't know. I have no idea what's gonna happen in the future, but all I know is right now I'm having a great time.
I'll always be a musician because that's just what I do. Like, I'm even kind of excited to go to, I want to get gray hair. I want to go to Vegas. I want to, like, play in a show band.
To just have fun with it, whatever's going on. It just has to be the main priority.
I feel like we have a lot to give, and we're still rocking and having a good time.
Music's infinite, and you never like really reach a ceiling or a pinnacle, and you're always learning, and so it never gets old and it never gets boring, and shows never get old and boring either, because it's like every night is new, and it's like a new chance to create that energy and then to enjoy it with a new group of people. And it's like the best way to fucking live, man.
You're not alive yesterday, you're not alive tomorrow, but you're alive at that moment. You know, if you can grab something for that moment, you have a chance.
Who's Brian Keeneland?
Brian is that big green grinning ball that he always draws on everything. I mean, that is Brian.
He's a pirate, and he's a samurai.
The Smith song, The Boy with a Thorn in His Side, that is Brian to me.
He's like Mr. T's biography, tough and tender.
He is the general. He is definitely the general.
He's the man. He's the fucking best. He's my musical soulmate.
Pete Steinkoff is one of the kindest people I know.
As far as genuineness and kindness, as far as a human being goes, Pete's like the nicest guy, and everyone will say that about him.
Pete is the sweetest, nicest guy you'll ever meet. He's like the nicest guy I know.
Pete's probably one of the nicest and most mellow guys that I've ever met in my life.
Pete is like the essence of good in the world.
He's a drunk. He's a boozer. Not a nice man. No, I'm kidding.
Everyone loves Pete. That should be a show.
McDermott's like a hard-working married guy. For a freak, he's pretty well-rounded and pretty responsible.
He is not a drunk. He's a punk. No, I'm kidding. No, actually, I'm not kidding.
I want to phrase this just the right way. He's a percussionist slut who's played just about in every band.
Cool guy. Very funny character. And an amazing drummer. Tons of pride in what he does. A good American.
This fucking freako weirdo, man. God bless him.
Greg's an old Italian man trapped in a young boy's body.
We used to say that Greg was an old black blues man trapped in a little white man's body.
He's a storyteller trying to put all the pieces of the puzzle together.
The most honest guy I know, whether you want to hear it or not.
He's quiet. Shit, I don't know. What do other people say about Greg?
Greg is on a journey. That's who Greg is. Greg is his journey.
Who are the Bouncing Souls?
The chemistry in this band, I don't think I've never seen exist in other bands, and I've been in a lot of other bands.
The Bouncing Souls are that feeling you walk away with from a show. That's what the Bouncing Souls are. When you just feel inspired.
We're just trying to get through life like everyone else. This is what we do. This is what we like to do. Here's how we feel. Judge for yourself.
Something that I'm really proud to be a part of, and I hope that we do in some way forever, you know?
It's one of those summation questions. Who are the Bouncing Souls, huh? I can't answer that one. Who are the Bouncing Souls? I don't know.
There's just like a bunch of hard-working guys from Jersey that, you know, that had the conviction to stay with it when everyone was like, you should go to college, you should be this, you should go with this model because this is what we know. It takes a lot of conviction to be like, we're dropping out of college, we're cutting off all these ties with our parents, and we're going to go this way because, you know, when 99% of those people that go that way fail, and they made it. I mean, they made it at least this far, which is far enough to have a movie made about them.